Dennis, you're up.
Welcome to the 2021 Shenandoah County Heritage Day, brought to you by the Shenandoah County Historical Society and the Shenandoah County's Library's Trubin Archives. I'm Dennis Atwood, a Shenandoah County Historical Society board member. Thank you for joining us via Zoom and Facebook Live to learn more about our county's rich history. If you're joining us from beyond the Shenandoah Valley, please tell us your location in either the Zoom chat or in the Facebook Live comment. This is the 1 o'clock program, Unearthing the History of the Fort Valley Manganese Mining. Now here's Zach Hoddle for a technical note.
All right. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Zach Hoddle, the archivist here at the Shenandoah County Library. Welcome to Heritage Day 2021. Just a few technical things to go through really fast. Number one, if there's a technical issue, I will be standing by. I am your technical support for today, so please just send me a chat if there is a problem. Everyone is on mute and should stay on mute during the presentation. If you have a question or a comment, please drop it in the chat or in the Facebook comments if you're watching live on social media. At the end, after we go through the video and the wrap-ups, there will be a question and answer time. And what will happen is I will read out any of the questions and responses to the panelists, and they will answer them as best they can. I will also, once the program gets started, add a link to the video that we're going to show. It will be shared on your screen, but if there's an issue or you want to watch, did we lose sound, Dennis?
Yes, briefly for about
We did.
15
Okay.
seconds here. Yeah.
So again, I'm going to drop the link for the Vimeo video and the Fort Valley Museum in the chat once the program gets started. So, all right, Dennis, that's it for me.
So thank you very much, Zach. Our presenters today for this program are Meg Trott and Henry and Hank Zimmerman. And Hank is the videographer for this, and Meg is aboard for additional historical information. Let me tell you some about them. Margaret Meg Trott has studied, taught, and written about history for most of her life. As a resident of Fort Valley for over 50 years, she says she may almost be considered a Fort Valley native. She and her husband, Jim, now deceased, raised 2 daughters and have 4 grandchildren. In addition to 30 years of teaching high school world history, world geography, and AP European history, and collegiate level Western civilization, Meg went back to school in the 1980s. She subsequently earned a master's and PhD in European history from the University of Virginia. Her dissertation, Soviet Medicine and Western Charity, 1917-1927, led to several research grants and papers presented in opportunities for travel before retiring from teaching. A collaboration with the Rockefeller Foundation resulted in an article entitled Passing Through the Eye of the Needle, American Philanthropy and the Soviet Medical Research in the 1920s, published by the Rockefeller Foundation, and Development of International Biomedicine After World War II, a book from the Indiana University Press, 2002. That strong emphasis on European history changed dramatically in the early 2000s when she began to delve into local Shenandoah County history. Meg and Jim's research of their old farmhouse resulted in the Daniel Munch House being placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2002. Then longtime Fort Valley historian Jeanette Rittenauer asked Meg to help her write a book about the history of the fort, which resulted in Welcome to Fort Valley, The History of Culture in Virginia's Valley Within the Valley, published in 2010. Meg played a major part in the renewal of the Fort Valley Museum and is currently a trustee and the corresponding secretary. She has served on the Shenandoah Historical Society's board of directors for a number of years. And Henry M. Hank Zimmerman, his involvement with local and regional media production spans decades and includes a diversity of technical and creative experience. Career highlights include co-founder and owner of Shenandoah Technology Systems Incorporated, IT chief of the Northern Virginia Daily during the 1990s, internet project manager for Shentel for nearly 10 years, and currently owner and operator of Shenandoah Valley Productions, LLC, since 2010. In 2010, Hank and James R. Morris co-produced the video The Burning for the Edinburgh Mill Museum. In 2019, Hank also produced The World on Fire, a Civil War documentary for the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. He is a former chairman of the Shenandoah County Library Board of Trustees. He built the current Shenandoah County Historical Society's website and has provided continuous volunteer website for the Historical Society since 2012. In 1979, Hank and his wife Laura purchased and subsequently restored the 1886 Frank Boyer Mill House and Farmstead, which was a connection to the Fort Valley Manganese mining. The house was built by Frank Boyer's father, B.F. Boyer, who was one of William Boyer's sons. William Boyer had purchased the mineral rights to the mines in 1876, and along with his sons, opened the door to manganese mining in Fort Valley. I think now we're ready to move on to the program. Thank you.
Meg, you're on mute.
Okay, good enough. Welcome everybody to our really punnily named Unearthing the History of Fort Valley Manganese Mining. And my apologies for the length of that sort of presumptuous sounding in that introduction that Dennis did. He did a great job. I shouldn't have given him that much stuff. But anyway, here we are. I have had more fun, and it has been more work than you can imagine to put this little 15-minute video together. And I've had just lots of enjoyment out of working with videographer par excellence, Hank Zimmerman. It's really been a great collaboration. All of my research comes from materials that can be found in the archives and on the shelves of the Fort Valley Museum, which allows me to make a small plug for that little museum. It's the smallest one in the county, as far as I know. But we have just had a board meeting, and we will be opening in person on 4th of July weekend. We will be open Saturday and Sunday afternoons from there through the end of October. We encourage people to come and see what we have in our little spot. At this point, I'm not sure what I'm viewing, but at this point, we are going to move on to unearthing the history of the manganese mines.
All right, thank you, Meg. We will get the video started.
Fort Valley is often called Virginia's valley within a valley. This is true because Fort Valley is not only kind of in the middle of the larger Shenandoah Valley, but it is also in the midst of the Massanutten Mountain Range. That range serves to divide the north from the south forks of the Shenandoah River. The earliest settlers here were working very hard just to survive, scrabbling to eke out a living from farming and hunting, and they had no time or knowledge to think about that there might be something better under their feet, under the ground. But by the early 1800s, there was already iron mining and manganese mining going on in Fort Valley. The largest bank of manganese lay in the edge of what is called Little Fort Valley. You get there by coming west on Boyer Road off the main Fort Valley Road, and then through Mine Run Gap and into the area where the mines were located. You look around and there is nothing left to see. And that's because in April of 1940, there was a terrible forest fire that took all of the boys from Camp Roosevelt and the CCC to put it out.
The story of manganese mining in the fort begins during the final years of the 18th century. Back then, early manganese mining operations were very small scale. The land and mineral rights at that time were owned by Isaac Overall of Page County. A large vein of ore lay close to the surface along the side of Green Mountain, which forms the inner ridge of Little Fort Valley. Until the 1870s, most of the early mines were located on working farmland. The Overall family members simply hauled out ore in heavy wooden wheelbarrows. The ore was then shipped out of the fort on horses equipped with large leather saddle pockets called panniers. Most of this early ore went to nearby Strasburg, where it was used to give Strasburg pottery a distinctive warm-colored glaze. By the 1840s, steelmakers already knew how manganese improved the malleability and hardness of steel. But the Fort Valley mines were never big enough to capture the attention of the major steel producers in Pennsylvania and Ohio. It would be the William Boyer family who would take Fort Valley manganese mining to the next level. William was born in 1804, and in 1836, he and his wife Regina moved to the fort from the Strasburg area. 10 of their 13 children were males. 11 of them lived to adulthood, and they all worked together to grow an expanding number of Boyer-owned enterprises. The women of the Boyer family also played their own part in the family's success. Their labor complemented the work done out in the Boyer mills, mines, and farm fields. By the 1860s, the Boyer family was also operating their own sawmill, grist mill, and general store. 2 19th century Fort Valley iron furnaces, Elizabeth and Caroline, had been destroyed during the Civil War. The Boyer family built Mine Run Iron Furnace in 1872 and operated it until 1889. In 1876, the Boyers turned their attention to the manganese tract. By then, William also owned the mineral rights to the land, and along with his sons and a few neighbors, worked the mine by hand. From 1878 to 1879, 400 barrels of ore were hand-dug, hauled out, and transported by wagon to the Waterlick Depot. From there, the ore was shipped north by rail to steel mills in Pennsylvania. But the Boyer family may have found that all of this manual labor involved with the mining became overwhelming, because by 1880, William had sold his roughly 1,200 acres of land in Little Fort, including all mining rights. The new owner was the Powell's Fort Mining Company. According to a story published in the Shenandoah Herald, the new company built an office building, a blacksmith shop, and a few other outbuildings. 50 to 60 workers were hired. During this time, ore was extracted from an open cut, a long gash dug into the west side of Green Mountain. That's where the ore lay closest to the ground surface. Over the next couple of years, more than 1,000 tons of ore were shipped north from the open cut. By 1882, the cut was finally exhausted. Any further attempts to extract ore from the cut would only fail. 11 years later, whatever had been left of the Powell's Fort Mining Company was sold off to cover delinquent taxes. But then, in 1906, Pennsylvania steel companies were once again becoming interested in Fort Valley ore. A new company, Woodstock Mining, opened up and deepened the access to underground deposits by improving the 2 existing shafts, referred to as number 1 and number 2. Woodstock Mining experienced 2 or 3 prosperous years before the big steel companies were lured away by cheaper Russian ore mined from large new Ukrainian deposits. The result, once again, left the market for Fort Valley manganese ore high and dry. In 1914, World War I broke out in Europe. Germany established a naval blockade that included the strategically positioned Straits of the Dardanelles. With that, Russia's Black Sea ports lost their route to the Mediterranean and beyond. Shipments of goods in and out of Russia were blocked, including loads of Russian manganese ore marked for shipment to the U.S. Now the big industrialists who had so quickly abandoned the Little Fort manganese deposits were just as quick to again reach out for Fort Valley ore, even though the U.S. did not actually enter the war until 1917. Large American steel companies weren't the only industries with a renewed interest in Fort Valley manganese deposits. New uses for manganese had been developed, such as in batteries that powered new types of communications equipment, in truck engine ignition systems, and for new types of explosive field mines. At that same time, the National Carbon Company's H.P. Binswanger of Cleveland, Ohio, was buying out the remnants of old Shenandoah Valley mining companies. The company established a new local business to manage the fort's mine operations, the Stockwood Realty Corporation. One of Binswanger's engineers, T.K. Harnsberger, was sent out to survey the little fort site. Harnsberger noted a lot of what was already there, the collection of existing buildings and a good spring that could provide enough water for the big steam-driven pumps now used in the mines. Shafts number 1 and 2, which were located about 100 yards apart, each went down about 200 feet and were fully functional. As early as April 1915, Harnsberger began hiring local mine workers, blacksmiths, and cooks. A great deal of mining equipment was hauled on site throughout 1915 and into early 1916. J. Carson Adkerson was an experienced mining engineer who arrived in January 1916 to manage the operations. He also eventually married a Woodstock girl named Ann Clower and remained in the area for the rest of his life. His long list of community-minded accomplishments included his contribution of engineering skill and time during August 1918, where he surveyed a tunnel that had the capacity to double the amount of water flowing from the Woodstock Reservoir to the town. In 1916, Adkerson had also brought in 2 experienced miners, John and Kemper Powell, who remained in the area and had also married local women. Kemper Powell was very familiar with the rattlesnakes that were always the miners' constant companions. There are people living today who may have personally known Carson Adkerson. He passed away in Woodstock at the age of 93 in 1985. The first new major mining construction projects at this time included a mill where chunks of ore would be separated from dirt and debris, as well as a transportation system that carried the raw ore from the mine to the mill. The mill machinery was powered by a huge oil-fired engine. By the beginning of 1916, additional shafts had been sunk, and a new office and bunkhouses were built. An article in the Shenandoah Herald explained how both the number 1 and 2 shafts now branched off into 3 levels. The top incline level, with a 50-foot tunnel leading to many robbing rooms where the bigger chunks of ore were hand-separated from the dirt. The 114-foot level, also with tunnels and robbing rooms. And the lowest, the car level, which was the most dangerous and unpleasant location. Here, muckers shoveled ore-laden dirt from the 2 upper levels into wheelbarrows and then on into elevator cars bound for the surface. The muckers wore rubber suits and boots because they had to stand in water that constantly drained down from the working steam-powered pumps. Once on the surface, the ore went into an ore shed where larger lumps of manganese were prepared for shipment in large fabric bags. From the ore shed, the remainder went into the mill for further sorting. Unusable material was diverted into a tailing located behind the mill. In August 1918, the Shenandoah Herald's editor, John Grable, proclaimed,
"Manganese of this grade was formerly imported from Russia, but at the beginning of the war, the Dardanelles closed, and it became necessary for the United States to look for a domestic supply. It was at this time that the mines of the Stockwood Realty Corporation were opened up, and it is now the largest producer of chemical manganese in this country."
Patriotic feelings were running high as the U.S. entered World War I. So a number of mine workers enlisted to support the war effort. Those who stayed behind to work in the mines designed a special company flag with 26 stars, honoring each of their fellow workers, the ones who were in the Army fighting over there. By January 1918, all manganese workers had been declared critical to the war effort and were exempt from the draft. Just 1 week after the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, the fort's manganese mining operation closed down yet again. The German defeat had allowed the Dardanelles to be reopened and the cheaper Russian manganese shipping resumed. John Grable argued in a December 20th editorial for the passage of a protective tariff against Russian manganese.
The closing of the manganese mines in Shenandoah County throws out of employment 275 men. These mines have contributed much to the prosperity of a large number of families. While the Fort mines yield ore of the finest quality, they are in competition with Russian mines, which furnish the same quality of ore at a much lower price. This situation will be disastrous to the miners and laborers who have been employed at the Stockwood mines in this county. Much money has been distributed by the mines. A protective tariff protects the few at the expense of the many. Much depends upon the placing of this tariff upon various articles, many of which are produced in this country. Why not give manganese a part of it? Why not encourage the infant industries in this section as has been given the practice in many other sections? Shenandoah, we are reliably informed, has as high a grade ore as can be obtained anywhere, but it does no good so long as it is permitted to remain in our mountains.
But no tariff ever materialized. Still, the mines were somehow able to reopen in 1925. The operation was once again managed by Carson Adkerson, although the mining property was now owned by the Virginia Manganese Corporation. Inevitably, Fort Valley Manganese mining finally closed down for good in 1927. Both foreign competition and the higher costs of mining the remaining deeper buried ore had taken a fatal toll. The now abandoned mine area was left deeply scarred with caved-in areas, large mounds of leftover tailings, and deteriorating buildings. The 1940 forest fire totally destroyed everything, and then nature gradually began to reclaim this part of Little Fort Valley. During the 1960s, the Mine Run Development Corporation started buying up large areas of Little Fort Valley land. They surveyed the area to build new roads and lakes. Not long after, advertisements started appearing in D.C. area newspapers, offering vacation building lots for sale with, quote, lovely mountain views and endless recreational opportunities. The initial buyer's response from the Baltimore-Washington corridor had been enthusiastic, but not much later, the construction on new vacation homes slowed to a crawl. Much to their sorrow, new Little Fort landowners found that not much of the land would perk, and some building foundations began sinking into collapsed mine shafts. Not surprisingly, the enterprise eventually went bankrupt. Today in Little Fort Valley, only a handful of private property owners live there, among the serenity and quietude of this out-of-the-way place. And the rattlesnakes, they're still there too. It's all that remains, in a place where decades of bygone industrial operations once extracted tons and tons of manganese ore, playing a unique role in helping to build and defend America.
I'm getting old and feeble, cannot work no more. I have laid my rusty mining tools away. For 40 years and over I have toiled about the mines, but now I'm getting feeble, old and gray. Where are the boys that worked with me in the breaker long ago? Many of them now have gone to rest. Their cares of life are over, and they've left this world of woe, and their spirits now are roaming with the blessed.
Okay, Meg. Meg, you're on mute again. Hey, Meg, you're muted.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, this is better. Thank you. I hope people enjoyed that. We really did have a good time putting it together, and it's been quite a learning experience. Since we finished the video, I've come across at least one historic fact that I want to share with you, because historians are always trying to get in people's heads, not just to put out a whole bunch of facts and figures. And I discovered this past week that William Boyer, the guy who really did the most to get the whole project started, was the one who in 1872 built Mine Run Iron Furnace. But what I did not know was that in 1873 and 74, there was an international money panic that caused the money that they could get for their pig iron to drop to almost nothing. And apparently William Boyer suffered a depression of his own, mentally and physically, because he didn't know what was going to happen to this furnace. It led to the fact that in 1876, he purchased the mining rights up in Little Fort to the manganese mines. And it's at that point that the manganese mining took off. There's much more to learn. And I look forward to hearing your comments and your observations. And at this point, I think Hank has some things he would like to say as well.
Am I on? Yeah, there I am.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Meg. And I just wanted to say that I have a personal note. Meg and Jim Trott were our first friends when we moved to Fort Valley in 1978. And very frankly, without their mentorship, I don't think we would have made it. We struggled for the first few years we lived in Shenandoah County. So this was just a special project for that reason alone. The second thing is we did buy this Frank Boyer place, as it was known, in 1979. That was 2 years after there was a big sale here, and the mill that had been located across the road had been dismantled and sold at the sale. That you can still see where the wheel was and where the mill pond was. But I never quite put it together. I knew that the house was built by B.F. Boyer, Frank Boyer's father, but I never really knew too much history beyond that. And also driving up through the Mine Run Road, if you go up at Little Fort, I've driven past the site of the mines, either in a car or on a bike, and it's private properties, and it's really heavily grown, so you can't really see what's going on in there. And so when I learned that B.F. Boyer was William Boyer's son, one of his many sons, and was involved in that mining operation, it really made that connection that, yeah, now I know kind of all the way back to the source of the history. We never really realized how much we would get into this video, but we had this idea of doing it, the shot with Meg right up adjacent from number 2 mine shaft. That day turned out to be an adventure. After I recorded Meg, I sent her home, and I went and climbed over the old tailings, and it's like a moonscape up there, just amazing. But when I was in there, I realized my cell phone didn't have any service, and if I tumbled down a hill, probably no one would find me for about 2 months. The second thing is I flew the drone, and it was a really windy day, and you might have noticed I only got to tree level, because any higher than that, it probably would have ended up in Page County. But it was just an amazingly fun project to do, and we're planning on maybe making this video available as like a permanent click-on exhibit at the Fort Valley Museum as well. So it's been just an honor to be a part of today.
Well, thank you, Meg and Hank, for that fascinating presentation and such an excellent video. I had thought that perhaps Zach had cut us over to a PBS program while that was going on. It's really great. Thank for all our viewers for joining us today for Virtual Heritage Day. The Shenandoah County Historical Society and Shenandoah County Library encourage you to attend our next event today, which is at 2 o'clock. Reservoirs, A Brief History of the Woodstock Reservoirs by Mariama Dryak. It starts at 2 p.m. We also invite you to mark your calendars for April 2022, when we will be hosting special Shenandoah County Heritage Day in conjunction with other events marking the 250th anniversary of the founding of Shenandoah County. More information can be found at our website, schs1795.com. and follow us on Facebook at SCHSVA. Thank you all. Any questions?
Yep, and we will take any questions in the chat, and I will read those out to our panelists. So feel free to send any in to me.
All I'm seeing, Zach, is praise.
Yep. So I'm not seeing it. Oh, here's a question. So Karen Wetzel wanted to know if there was a connection between the owners of the two houses in which Meg and Hank now live, since they were both Boyers.
Am I okay?
Yes, ma'am, you are now.
All right. We're having playing this little game about the unmuting process here. First of all, I see a past connection. Hank's house, no, basically. My house was built by Daniel Munch, and it was built in around 1834. And not much of what Daniel or his descendants did had anything to do with the manganese mine. And I'm sure sometimes the Munch family bought things from the Boyer family store or took grain to be ground there. But in terms of connections, not until about 1900 did a Munch daughter marry a Boyer great-great-grandson or something like that. So I think, Hank, do you have anything more to say with that? Okay, he's muted. And I see Pat Shelton's comment down here. And I looked up, first of all, Pat, on that list that went past quickly of miners in January 1916, there were two Mocks. There was an Omar and an Elmer Mock. Now, I don't know, you have George, I don't know where George fit into this. That's the only list that we have right now. Some of those old day books that they had have gone out of Fort Valley, sadly. We would love to get them back. And Rosa Marston, yes, Rosa Marston was a daughter of Joseph, or granddaughter of Joseph, probably, right? Who first started out by managing and eventually went on to own Caroline Furnace. And you said you thought people was that surprising. I have no idea whether there was some sort of unseen class system going on where they said that one wouldn't marry with the other. It makes not much sense, but couldn't find an answer to that. Kevin Boyer, down in North Carolina, I think. Your question about where was the Boyer family store? I believe the store would have been, if you're familiar coming out Boyer Road and you come to the old mine furnace, the ruins from the old mine run furnace. I believe the store would have been across the road from that on the south side, but somewhere within that immediate area, because the iron furnace was built fairly close to the family complex. That's a guess. That's an educated guess.
That looks like that might be, wait, we're getting another, yep. So I don't see any other questions from anyone. So, and if anybody has anything, they can certainly reach out to either myself or the Historical Society, and we can put you in contact with Meg or Hank or anyone from Fort Valley. And we certainly thank you, Meg, and thank you, Hank, again.
Okay, I have one little thing.
One more thing.
I look out here and I see Carolyn Boyer Kramer, who helped us a bit with some background information as well. And I want to give a shout out to Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, and we will see everyone again at 2 o'clock for the program on the Woodstock reservoirs. So have a good one.